Thanks, Julia, for the introduction. So today we'll be diving a little bit deeper into Figma. For those who weren't there yesterday for the intro class, my name is Andrew. I'm a product designer at Meta, formerly Facebook, in Directory Labs, working on things for the metaverse. And at night, or sometimes whenever I have time, I also still work on medical illustration and scientific illustration as well. So today we'll continue with what we started yesterday. Let me see why it's not working. Sorry, give me a second. So what we got to design a mobile screen yesterday, but we didn't get to work on prototyping it. So today we'll continue that, working on a prototype where you can go in, put this on your phone. If you have Figma Mirror installed on your phone, you can just actually play this on your phone, drag and have it very interactive. There's some elements in here that you can play with and things like that. So yeah, and then towards the end, we'll get to play something like this. This is something I came up with in while working on illustrations inside Figma, and there's some animation capability as well that you can do. For example, in this case, I'm just making a very simple animation here. And it's interactive. So if you're presenting this to a client or helping the client work on a presentation that's interactive, but sometimes they ask for animation as well, there's something that you can do. So all these are clickable. You can set it, turn this on into an animation. You can record the screen and make it into something as simple as that. So yeah, that was pretty fast, and we're gonna try to cover both of that today. Just before we get started, do you have any questions? All right. I have not tried that. Felix, could you explain more of that? I think Felix is asking, is a Figma competitor? No, I haven't tried Lunacy. Yeah, so I think like currently Figma is pretty strong in the space for at least for screen design. I think their animation could do a little bit more work there, and we'll find out later on as well. So for today, I'm going to share this link to everyone. Let me see. So as yesterday, you can feel free to copy and paste some of this into your own file or work with me as well in this playground page. Okay, let's see where we should start. So I'm not gonna worry too much about creating the screens here, but just imagine that you have a series of screens here, and what I actually started was with this one screen right here. So you can follow me in Zoom or in the Figma file as well. Let's try not to touch any of the screen up here. So when I started with this one, it's finalized here. And I kind of know that I wanted an animation where there's a splash screen here saying, giving me welcome. So I would just make a duplicate of this, and I actually would remove this part right here. And the thing with Figma is that there's a animation transition called Smart Animate. So if you use Keynote, it's just like magic move. So wherever that you're doing here on the screen before the final screen, it will copy over. So in this case, I'm copying the exact same element there, the stuff that I want to have there. There's an extra thing that don't need to be there yet. And enlarging this text here. Okay. So now we have two basic screens here using the same elements on both screens. The only difference that we have here is just the size of the boxes. And if you have the red grid turned on, just press Control G. That should turn it off. let me know if that doesn't work. So Control G. Yeah, so now we have two different screens, but with the same element. If you look on the left side, I have my image as an ellipse here, and this one over here is also an ellipse. I think, okay, still having trouble. You can also go to the view menu and turn on uncheck the layout grids if you're still having trouble with the direct grid. But yeah, so now that we have these two screens, can go to the prototype mode by clicking on prototype. I have some line here that was there before that should delete. Okay, it's not letting me select this. Okay, I'm trying to remove these little lines here, but it's not letting me. Sorry, I'm trying to clean this up a little bit. I'm not sure why it's kind of stuck there right now. So a lot of what I do in Figma is just trying to figure out why something's not working sometimes. But let's see. But anywho, let's pretend that these lines are not here yet. Once you click on, I think it's because some people are selecting it, maybe. But once you click on one and you're into prototype mode, so now I have an interaction here, which I don't want because I copy and paste it from the different screens. So I'm going to remove that from there. There you go. All right, so now we have two new screens. So you want the left one to transition to the right one. Once you're in the prototype mode, you can click on this little starting point here, which is a circle. When you hover over it, it will become a plus sign. Drag and drop that to the next screen that you wanted to animate to. And then this interaction details panel will pop up. And there's different ways to do this. Since this is set as a mobile screen, there's different interaction that you can put here. In this case, I'm just going to put on tap, like just tapping on the screen. But you can also set it after a delay. So we'll show the screen for however many milliseconds you have here, and it will automatically transition to the next screen. And for animation styles, I'm going to choose Smart Animate. There's different ones as well. There's moving in and out. There's push as well. And there's a little review down here. So pushing is useful for when you're transitioning from one screen to another, from left to right and things like that, as you're diving deeper into the flow. But for this purpose, we're going to use Smart Animation. So what Smart Animate does is that it will match the different layers or different objects with the same name and the same location in the frame. And then, as you see, as I pointed out earlier, these are ellipses. This is the same block of text. So now we have these two. Now that's basically it. And then you can preview it by clicking on this play button right here. And I think that was flow 3 right here. So let me know if that's a little bit confusing. I can repeat it as well. And it looks like I should have cleaned this up a little bit, because now what Figma does is that once you set an animation, a transition from one screen to another, and you copy that screen, it will maintain the connection. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go do all these guys and remove them just to make it simpler. Okay, so just whenever you create a new flow, so follow what Felix does. You can name your flow just so that it's easier for you to preview in the prototyping screen. I'll give everyone like a couple minutes to do this. Okay, so Felix is asking directly inside the workspace to do this. Just press / on your keyboard and just start typing. So to enable Smart Animate, what you can do is you can, if you already have a connection, just click on the connection. And once you click on the connection, there's a panel that shows up for interaction details. And then in the animation section, just drop down and select Smart Animate. So there are several kind of easing you can do with this for those who are motion graphic designer or understand animation. I'm not going to go too deeply into this. So there's easing in and out and back in and out. So most of the time, I actually just click on these things to see what works and what doesn't work and test it out. Or you can also custom the easing as well. So there's this easing curve that you can play with as well if you want it to be more customized. How's everyone doing? Good so far? I can see people's faces, so yeah. So I'm not going to go too deeply into all these different screens in between. So for example, when I did this flow 3 here, it's a little bit too fast, right? There's no breathing room for the user to see. So what I ended up doing was that I would add an intermediate screen here. So basically, without having to go deep into this, basically you can see that I have a staging screen in between just so that there's a pause here. And then I plug this in. So if you click on this, you can see that the same element is highlighted in the other screens. So this helps when for animation as well. So in this case, I have it below a little bit lower on the screen here, and then I set the opacity over here to be 0, so it doesn't show up. So by the time that this one pops up over here, it will kind of flies up a little bit instead of just fading in. So let me show you how it's done over here. So right now on this screen, we don't have anything like that, right? Because I deleted them earlier. What I would do is to copy this entire frame, paste this on here, and then kind of move it down a little bit. And then on the right side, for the layer, I set the transparency to be, the opacity to be 0%. Then let's see if that works. So now we can see that's a little bit smoother. There's some sort of like bottom-up animation here. Yeah, so these are the different things that you can do with Figma to kind of prototype out your animations. Clearly, like a lot of this is just to demonstrate that you can animate in Figma to do a lot of transitions. But if you do it in a very smart way, there are micro transitions and micro animation that would be really helpful for the user to see to improve the experience, to point them, to guide their eyes to what they should be looking at any given time, and also to add the lights as well. Yeah. And if you have Figma Mirror installed on your phone, you can actually preview this directly on your phone. But I but you would need to do it in your own account. So I would copy and paste this entire thing wherever you're working on into your file, open the Figma mirror on your phone, and then there are instructions over there to show you how it's done. I'm not gonna dive into that for now, just because Figma mirror is uploaded to my phone. But yeah, so once you can very easily preview this on your phone, play with it, interact with it, then come back here and play some more with the timing and things like that. Okay, so for the next one, I kind of want to have this user icon appear. Maybe it's a clickable element. You can tap on it to go into user settings and whatnot. And since I wanted to play around with transition some more, I kind of want it I want the wide outline of the user icon to take up the entire screen, just to have like this overlay effect, right? So what I would do here is I am going to copy and paste this again. And if you notice in the example here, it's a white screen on top of the content below. So there's this like blurring effect here. So I'm going to try to do that again. If you click into this screen, there's already an ellipse 3, which is a white, basically a white circle that I put there earlier, just so that I can, now that I'm in the new screen, the destination screen, I'm gonna make it a little bit larger just by scaling it up. So what I would do is I held onto Option or Alt key and then press Shift to retain the aspect ratio, and just kind of align it in the center like that. And for the overlaying blurring effect, what I would do here is that I'm going to set my transparency to 95%, so you can see some of that. And then for the effect, you can go to the effect tool here, press plus, and it will show up as a drop shadow, but you can change it into a background blur. And then you can adjust the blurring over here as well. Cool. So let's check it out to see if it works or not. Switch over to prototype again. You can press Shift E to quickly activate this panel. So you're in prototype mode now. So just do the same thing as earlier. Drag and drop this over here, and make sure that your animation is selected to Smart Animate. And I'm gonna try this out again by going over here. And then, so that kind of worked by just tapping on the screen. But we want it to be coming from this when the user is interacting with this icon only. So you can just select the origin of the line, and then that doesn't work. You have to select the line first, I think. No, okay. So just select the user icon here, and then there's a plus sign there, and then you can just drag and drop it over here. And then it should just retain the Smart Animate setting that you have earlier. So now clicking on it doesn't do anything, but you can click on the user icon and it will fill the screen. All right. The next step is to animate this user icon now. It's pretty easy, just kind of, so you need to, don't do what I just did. You need to exit the the prototyping stage. So by clicking on design again, drag this into the center, and then just resize it to be larger over here. And with the prototyping tab, this is basically updated in real time. So you can just press back, try it out, and you can see that it's animating up along with the screen. Okay, for the next ones, I'm gonna drop in some of these items here. I'm gonna be lazy and just gonna copy from the example up there. So just copy in a bunch of stuff like here. And if you go back to the prototype, it's kind of jarring for this to, for the text to just show up and without giving time for the animation to finish. And so another way to go through this is like what we did earlier, make another duplicate of this and just kind of remove what you don't really need or change the opacity to 0 for now. And I kind of wanted to float in a little bit, so I'm gonna pull it down a little, just a tiny bit. And I'm gonna do the same with the name as well. Yes, so Felix is asking if there's a way to scale up the strokes. Basically, you can just press K to switch over to the scale tool. And then from there, or you have to be in design mode first. So I'm gonna show an example here, press K and then drag it out. Hopefully. Yeah. All right. So what I just did earlier was that I put in the content of this settings page, and for the intermediate screen, I kind of turn everyone into a basically a 0% transparency here. And then I'm going to add in another transition here. Whoops. No, what just happened here? My arrow is backwards. Okay. And since I wanted to like show up automatically with them needing me to click it, I'm gonna change this from on tab to after delay. This is default at 800 milliseconds. I'm gonna change it to 300 milliseconds for now. And Smart Animate's the same, everything's the same. Let's see how it works over here. So click on this. All right, I think someone put an image. All right. So I think someone or I accidentally removed the user icon here. What I just did was to put back the connection there. So you see this, and then the animation to kind of let the animation finishes, and then the content would fly in a little bit later. So this just makes it easier for the user to see. But yeah, and to do a close animation to go back to what we had earlier to dismiss the screen. So I'm gonna go up here, copy and paste this close icon. And then from here, drag it back to the previous screen like that. And since we have all the elements here before, except for my user icon, which I would need to take back. Okay. So since we have all the elements like what we had before, this will animate backwards. So here in the preview, you can click on this. So let's try that again. Click on this to open that up, and then close it. All right, any questions so far? I know I'm moving really, really fast if you never prototyped before.
I have more of a general question about how prototyping gets used. Maybe you can speak to how you use it in your work. Is this like information, like a layer of information that you're providing that's passed off to like a development team and they implement it, or is it just for showing? You don't have clients, I guess, but like, how do you use this in your work?
All of the above. So basically, for things like this, if the work that you're working on requires a lot of transitions that are not out of the box, right? Like if, or if you just want to test out like the flow or the feel of the flow as you're using this as a user. So that's one thing, just to test it out to see if your flow makes sense or not. So that's at the personal level, right? And then you can show this to your design team, ask them for feedback as well. You can show it to the client to show the vision of what this could be. Like if you don't have development yet and just designing, right? You can bring this to user testing to see if they test well, if the usability is there or not, if they know to click on this to get to the settings, and they can have feedback on if the animation is like weird or if there's no animation at all. Like in this case, for example, if I just click on this and the whole screen's become like this, right? With the animation, they may not know that it's actually originated from here when they tap on it, and vice versa. What else? Yeah, and for user testing and then for engineers as well. You can do this for engineering, show it to them how things should be animated, how things should show up. You can put this in a pitch deck if you're pitching it to a new product or sharing it to some stakeholders and things like that.
Oh, okay. So it does show up in like the inspect menu, so like developers can see the interaction information.
I actually never tried that. Let's take a look.
I just tested it and it looks like that information comes up for them.
Let's see. Yeah, what Julia said. But yeah, for how it works, I work very closely with engineers. I don't just put in a box and then give it to them. So there's a lot of back and forth and fine tuning it as well.
Okay, cool.
All right. Boop, boop, boop. So I think let's take a break from prototyping and animating, and then we can jump over to work on variants a little bit. So that's the fun part. Just follow me to the components over here. Don't do anything on this page just yet. And as a reminder to follow someone in Figma, just click on their icon on the top right. All right. So what I'm doing, let me show you what what we're going to work on today for this part. So there's a component right now. I'm going to drag one out here. That did not work as expected. Paste it out instead of dragging it out. So just kind of zoom into this little list item right here. I'm going to take a look at the variants I set up over here. So there's a component, but it's also part of a set of variants for this component. I'm calling it the list item. So over here on the right side, you can see that in the right side panel, when you click on it, there are different things you can do to it. I can change it from text from 2 lines to 1 line. I can turn the left image on and off. I can also change the image size as well, large or small. And all of these are basically pretty interactive in the sense of you can have as many variants as you like, and then just so that once you design, all you need to do is just to pull this out and change it up as you need to. So let's go back to the playground a little bit. Most of the components that you pull out from my example above, these are all components of the list item earlier, right? I don't want to mess with Felix's screen. So let's see if we're here right now. If the design doesn't require like a 2-line items, you can just change it to 1 line, you know, and then change it to text. And things like that. You can change this image to a small image, and then you can go in here, and since these icons are also components, you can do a drop down and select a different icon here as well. So let's take the next like 10 minutes trying to figure out how this works. Okay. Feel free to make a copy of this, like what I just did over here. Move it to the side or something like that. Just try not to touch the original box right there. Okay, and since whatever you just dragged out, they are components, you will need to, it's still associated with the list item thing over here. So you will need to right click on it and detach the instance for now. And there's another trick here. So you might notice that this little thing is it's a frame, but it's not showing up as a frame on the left side. So this is like two boxes thing here. What this means is that this frame is set up as an auto layout. So auto layout is actually something very powerful in Figma. Let me show you real quickly. For this part, you can follow if you like, but I'm going to go through this really quickly. So let's say I have a bunch of random stuff over here. I'm just going to recreate this this item here. Right. So these are like floating randomly as a box. I'm going to put a frame on this. And then on this side, I'm going to turn on auto layout. So in the beginning, it kind of looks kind of messy depending on how you set this up. But what auto layout does is that it put everything in a layout automatically. So when you turn this on, there are two different there's two different directions. There's vertical and horizontal. I have 3 elements here. What Figma is trying to do is to lay this out, all these 3 out in the layout. Again, this is the space in between the items. It's a little bit too wide, so I'm going to change it to 20. And then the container itself is set to have the content or fixed width. I'm going to resize it a little bit. Let's see what else. And for this one in here as well, so I've already put the text in a different auto layout as well, and it's showing up as fixed width as opposed to expanding along with the content. So I'm going to change it to have the contents. So what that did was to push out the other item as well. I'm going to do the same here. And now everything is like kind of aligned on top because of this layout of this alignment over here. I can change it to the center from left to right. And then that's basically it. There's a lot more I can do to this to clean it up. But what this basically allows me to do is now I can just drag, select an item in the auto layout and then move it to a different spots, and it will retain the spacing and everything. That was really fast. So we can play a little bit more with auto layout. It's a little bit tricky, but basically you can change the padding, you can change the margins in between and things like that to set up this component. Right. So I have this one right here. I'm going to make a copy of it. And I'm going to go up here, make a copy of this icon, just any icon you like, and then click into this frame. I can just select Jordy's face and then paste that in there. Since it's in an auto layout, this will pop up as another item, and this will follow the exact same rule that the entire box is following. So this will show up as in between these two things. We don't need this icon here anymore, so I can just delete that, and it will pop back into this. So now we have two variants, right? One is a large image and one is a small one. So the next step for this is that you can create the component, just select one frame, turn it into a component. Doesn't matter what the name should be right now, and do the same thing with the other one. So now you have two different variants of this list item. Now you can select both of them. And then on the right side, you can see that there's a button that says to combine as variants. So click on that. Now this whole thing is wrapped inside this component set for the variants. So it shows up as the variant has one property right now. Its name is property 1. We can just change it to left image, right? Because that's the one thing that's changed. And then to set the value, basically you can click on one of this. It's showing up as default. So just kind of click into it, rename it to like profile picture. Then do the same thing for the other one, but this time it's an icon, right? So basically you just created a variant for the left image here. To test it out, just click on one of this, Control C to copy it, and Control V to paste it up, paste it outside of the purple box. And then here you can see what we just worked on. We have icon, and then we have profile picture. Okay, that was pretty fast. So just let me know if you have some questions over here. And I'm not gonna do this. I'm not gonna do all this, but basically, I can break this apart a little bit to show you what the variants are. So right now I have, once you click on this, it's showing up as a bunch of different properties. There's text, the values are 1 line or 2 lines. The left image can be turned on and off. So for that to work, you have to, when it's an off stage, basically like this, to put false. And what it does is that when you're using the component, it will show up as a toggle button. This makes it easier instead of clicking on here to do a drop-down list. Yeah. So you can see like you can go pretty wild with this. Like there's many different ways to build new variants. So let's say if I want to have the variant to show the disclosure icon on the right side or not, what I would do is I would just copy and paste all of this in the same box, right? So Figma is going to complain a little bit. Just ignore that for now. And then I'm going to go through all this and then remove all this icon over here. All right, Figma is still complaining. What I would do is I would select all of this, what I just made up, and now showing a lot of different mixed things, and it's still complaining here. So I would click on the list item box here, select this options icon here, and then add a new property. So my property name could just be disclosure icon, right? Now we have a property. Then you can just select the original one, It's showing up as default. I'm going to change it to true because it's there. And for the right side, change to false. So now if you go here, this is now showing up as another toggle button here. And there's a lot more things you can do with it. All right. That was very quick with variants. What I would recommend is to play a lot with this, and then you figure out. One question that some people may have is that, like, why are we creating variants as opposed to just making a bunch of these like its own components? You can. That was how we used to do it before variants became a thing. The only downside of that is that it's harder to manage because then things can be floating around. They may not be sharing the same components over time. So this will keep everything together here. And variants has a better UI here for your design team or for your coworkers to go through and just to switch around with this as opposed to changing the components directly.
Is this a new feature, like relatively new?
Yes, within this year.
Yep.
Yep. So yeah, so that's a very quick thing with variants. And then let's see, I guess for the next 15 minutes, I'm just gonna go through what I shared earlier about like creating like some sort of animation in set. Since we all came from BMC, you know, we still have a soft spot for illustrations and animation in the biomedical space. And using the exact same tools that we use for screen design, you can do the same thing for animations. For this part, I'm just gonna walk through my file. I don't think there's much you can do here for the animation part. Okay. So I would just go back to Zoom and just watch this as a demo, I guess. All right, so over here, I have a bunch of cells that I imported from, basically I created them in Illustrator. You can totally do this in Figma, but just for sake of time, I just use whatever I created in Illustrator for a project. These were all exported into SVG. So all of these are basically vector-based images. There's colors you can change and things like that. What I did was to import them in here, turn them into components. So basically what I just did here was to create a library of components of cells. And for demonstrative purposes, I also have like this cells as basically dying, going through apoptosis. So I'm calling this a variant. It's another state of the cell. So I make some simple variants here. You click on this box here, it's showing that's their cell type. So there's 3 types of cells here, and they can undergo apoptosis or not. So basically, to use this, I just copy and paste this out over here. Whoa, that's very dark. So you can see this all vector based, and there's like transparency and all that built in. So now it's taking up the background color over here. I'm gonna change my page background color to white to make it easier to see. So over here you have a cell. You can change it to different cell types. You can turn on apoptosis. Like for now, like it's just pretty fun to play with. It doesn't really serve any practical purposes yet. But if you happen to have a workflow or for your own practice, if you build up like this library of cells, basically this can be a very powerful toolbox, right? If you have Illustrator, you're very used to creating symbols and recycling all these images across different clients. And then one cool thing about Figma is that all of this can be published. So yesterday, someone asked me the question about like copyrights and things like that, how we could use, just go to the Figma community or go onto Twitter somewhere, and then someone might have this out there. They can just make a copy of the library and such as a UI kit for an iPhone or an Android, and just kind of remix it. You can totally do that too if you would like to turn this into an open source project, or just have like a few out there just so that people can see the type of work that you can do as an illustrator. And then they can contact you for more information if needed. Another cool thing about it is that Figma is a free tool, so anyone can use this at any time, and all of this is vector-based. All right, so we have all these things, and how did I create that animation? So those who studied the animation stream, you basically may recognize this as like basically your storyboard, right? But the cool thing about it is like as you're building out a storyboard, you can animate it as well in a very rough way. It's not as good as After Effects, but the basic animation is there. So right now, I just basically have a bunch of circles here to represent the SSL. And these are components I had made. And I tried looking for a plugin that will spray this randomly. I wasn't able to find it. So basically all this was just like randomly placed, and then I just keep on copying and pasting it. So within this, I have 2 cells hidden behind it right there. And I kind of shrank it down there. So using the same transition that we used earlier, basically you go to prototype, click on this, and that's the Smart Animate transition. And I'm using the same 2 cells and blow it up here. So what this would do is, when you click on this, it giving you a zooming in effect. So basically, I have a different screen here that's exactly the same because I got lazy and I reused the same cells here as my cytokines coming out from these natural killer cells. So I remove them here just so that they don't animate at the same time. So let me show you what it looks like if I didn't have that intermediate screen there. So see how the same circles are flying in together in the background? So we don't want that. So that's why I have this one without any circles hidden there. And for this part, basically, I put back a bunch of those circles. I'm not sure you can see it here. But there's a bunch of those cytokines in there in the background right here. You can see on the layer list over here. So these are set at 0% transparency so that they're hidden for now. And then on this next screen, they're sprayed out. So just kind of rearrange them at different places, change up their transparency a little bit. And just kind of go through this very quickly, copy and pasting every screen, and just kind of move it over here. And once I'm here, what I did was that I turned on apoptosis basically. And then it would look like this. And then kind of transition it out a little bit more. Just going through this, deleting cells as I go through, just to show that the infected cells are being cleared out. So this is the final product of that. I can share this prototype and people can view it and play around with it as well. But what I just did was that I put together this animatic, right, in a sense, both storyboarding and animating it. And then I can just share this link directly to your client or anyone, or you can even record the screen and share it out as an animation. Yeah, was that interesting? I don't know. I just kind of nerded out on this. Like I used to make animation in PowerPoint and Keynote, and it was really cool to be able to do this here. Especially if you can build up like a library of cells of scientific figures, or collaborate with everyone to make this open source as well.
This is super cool.
Yeah, totally. And for example, right here, right, like if I want to change it from natural killer cells to something else, I have that library that I built earlier. Not only can I select what I want to change it to, I can also search for it as well. So imagine if you have like this giant library, then you can just go through this very quickly. Search for anything you like. Yeah.
I think this is great. I'm always interested, for me personally, I'm always interested in finding creative misuses of different tools or getting them to do things that they weren't necessarily designed for. Yeah. And I think this is a really great example of that. And I'm excited that you've tested this out, and I might do something similar now.
Yeah, it's actually I actually got inspired by this plugin called Blush, I think. Let me see if it would launch. So basically, if you go to, or just Google Blush illustration, it's a plugin for Figma, and then there's a bunch of illustrations that you can select from here.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool. The free version is like giving you like a small PNG, and then if you subscribe, then you can unlock like larger PNG and SVG as well. But basically, what it does is that it just would drop in all these. Let me pull this out. We drop in all these like illustrations, and then you can remix it similarly to like what we did locally. But you can change like the shape of all these things, the hairstyle, and different postures and things like that. Yeah, like Blush is a company. It's open source where you can use like small images and things like that. These are usable. But if you want to upgrade to something more higher quality, then you can subscribe to it. So we can totally do this as well for medical illustrations. Yeah, I'm actually looking into this as well. So if anyone's interested in collaborating or creating assets and things like that, we can take a stab at it.
Oh, neat. You're looking for people to like work on asset creation, like
to
create like a plugin or a library?
Just for fun for now. I think like some of this can be open source. I guess at the end of the day, it's just like a blob. I tell people that to drop blob for money sometimes, but by doing this, like you unlock a lot of stuff, right? People learn more about illustration and animation, and then they can reach out to you if you're a freelancer. They can ask for more help and things like that.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great idea.
All right, we have 3 minutes left if anyone has any questions.
Yeah, so folks in the audience or the participants, feel free to write your questions in the chat. You can come off mute if you want. If you have anything you want to ask, or just comments, feedback for Andrew.
Oh, please asking what's a feature I really want to see added. I haven't really needed this for work, but based on what we walked through today, I think basically better illustration tools would be useful in Figma. Right now, it's just a pen tool, and Figma is not built for that, but I can see it could be useful for illustration libraries in the future. So it would be cool if you can illustrate directly in it, and better animation as well. Like at least with like paths and things like that, right? So you can tell your cell or your components where to go when you're animating, instead of just trying to hack around with Smart Animate.
Any other questions?
Actually, it's not, surprisingly, not very difficult. So Felix asking if I had trouble importing SVG, like not at all. Like if, let me show you what I have again. So when I imported these guys, they basically, even the layers name from Illustrator is maintained. All the groups are maintained as well. Yeah, so I have speckle highlights, shadows, and things like that, and all these are directly from SVG from Illustrator. I actually don't remember if I actually imported it or if I just copy and paste it from Illustrator directly.
Yeah, sometimes you can just drag stuff in. It's really nice.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. I would say some trouble I had was if you have weird mesh gradients or some kind of gradients or transparency effects, then that might not work as well. But you keep your layers clean, then it should work.
Cool. All right, so we're at half past the hour, depending on where you are. It's half past the hour. I think, I can't remember when we've started, but I think it's been approximately an hour since we've been here. So if there are no other questions, I think we can wrap up for today. So thank you so much, Andrew, for this class and yesterday's class. I think we all really enjoyed learning a lot about Figma and are excited to use it in all different kinds of ways. And
yeah. Right. Yeah. If you have any questions, just send me an email. And I'm not sure I should be broadcasting my email. I just realized from yesterday. But yeah, you can find me on social media or on my website, and the links to emails and things like that.
Perfect.
Cool.
All right. Thank you, everyone.